G'day, welcome everybody. Welcome to week 5 of Decoding Digital. We've skimmed through the first half very quickly with Sohal again on the couch. How you going, Sohal?
Hi Ryan. Hi everyone. Good afternoon again.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for sending in plenty of questions this week. We've got a lot of content to cover in half an hour today, so plenty to talk about. As always, this is available for recording, and you can keep sending your questions in as we're talking about them. So you can send us emails at decodingdigital@symphony3.com and send us a tweet as well. We've got it here in front of us, so looking forward to your questions. We were pretty packed for time in the webinar this week, while we also had a chat with the art, which was really great.
Yes.
So I just wanted to quickly touch on the follow-up resources we've got available for you this week. We do have the infographic, which looks something like this, and you can download it in full from the Business Victoria website, and there's also a competitor analysis worksheet there for you, which should be really useful if you're trying to pick out some of the things your competitors do well, some of the things you might do better than them, and trying to get a better idea of your competitive advantage.
Yeah. Download the resources. The guide is pretty useful, I believe. It's good at understanding the different types of social media communication as well. And if you didn't get a chance to join us at the webinar, please do actually have a look. And we've spoken about a few different concepts, and very interesting to hear the ARC and the stuff that they're actually doing with their website. So
great. So I think we'll jump straight into the questions, just because we've got plenty to cover today. So first question was from Louise, which is a really good one, around some images she had that she owned that she was using on her website, and she's had some local competitors actually take those images and use them on their own website. And it appears that they're being used as stock images, even though they are her intellectual property.
yes.
So she wants to know what kinds of things she could do to prevent that from happening in the future. How can we make sure that our images are recognized as belonging to us?
Yeah, so Louis, very common in the digital space. Sorry about that. That's what happens. There's so much available online. So far from legal advice. So we wouldn't give any legal advice. We suggest that you speak with your IP lawyer and get some real advice if you really wanted to get those images taken down from their website. But going forward, what you could also do, more of general advice to block, or would say scare people off from downloading and using your images, is you can register them with the creativecommons.org. So Luis, we emailed you back that link, and we share that link as well. Next thing you can also do is you can actually put what we call as the watermark. So a lot of these stock photography websites where you can go and actually purchase photographs to use on your website, when you try to download it from their site without actually paying for it, it'll download fine, but there'll be a watermark right in the center of the image that it's copyrighted or owned by them. So if you would tell your web developer, who would know how to do that, or the photographer might be familiar with that, to add a watermark against, and to add the watermark in an area that's on top of the center of the image and not on the bottom right or left, because people can easily crop and cut and move that out. That should save, that's a clear indication that you own those images, and that and it's not very easy to remove. It requires a lot more effort to actually remove than it is to just move on and look for another similar image. So it's a very good way of scaring people off. We did speak in week 3 about what we call as metadata that goes on your website pages. So you could work with your web developer as well to put a simple line that says that all this information is copyrighted under Australian copyright laws, and and it's owned by this website. So if somebody goes to try to download that, they would still be able to download it. So again, just to say, all these measures don't stop people, but it's more of scaring them off. But having that copyright information, anyone who's trying to do it, or a website developer is trying to do it, would feel a bit of fear to actually go there and do that. The fourth thing you can do is block downloads from your website. So if you have put images up on your website, again, you may need your web developer to help you this. You can actually stop people from right-clicking and saving an image like you can do on most websites. So they would still be able to take a screenshot and maybe work around with the image, but you can block people from downloading. With that though, there is a trade-off. You may actually have real customers or prospects who want to download or want to print one of your products. Suppose you have a product or print a timetable, and if that's blocked, they may not be able to do that, and that may result in bad usability for them, or may result in the loss of them not attending an event or not able to remember when's the next event or which product they want to purchase from you. Last but not the least, alt tags. So mention your company's name in the alt tag. So a lot of the times when people copy images over, they copy it directly with the alt tag, and if they put that up on their website, it'll show your name as well. So put in your company name in the alt tag as well, and make sure you can block people from downloading it, or in fact scare them away.
Great, I think there's some really good advice there, Sahal. Plenty of things you can do, and I think many of these things you'll probably be able to find some fairly simple tutorials online as well. And,
yes, yes. So
and sort of teach yourself these things as you go.
Yeah, it sounded quite complex when they're actually not. They're actually simple things you can do, and your web developer could even, again, I know, Ryan, you use a lot of free online tools to crop your images and work through them that you get. So I'm sure one of those free tools would help you put watermarks as well on top of images that you own, of course, not someone else's images, but images that you own. There'll be a lot of online tools if you Google it as well that will help you do a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, obviously tools like Photoshop are great, really useful. They're really powerful. You can do a lot with them, but they're also quite expensive. So if you're doing it on a budget, there are quite a lot of free tools out there you can find with a simple Google search to get some basic image editors, some of which are based online without having to install any software, some of which you can download and use offline. I've used a bit of both, but for basic stuff, even things like watermarking, you can do quite a bit of stuff. So that's some really good advice there, Sahal. We'll move on to our next question, which is a question we had, or a request we had during the webinar this week, which we didn't have time to fit in.
I think there were a few of them. Sorry about that, guys. There are a lot of questions coming in left, right, and center. So that's the purpose of today, to answer those. So
we were asked to give a little bit of information about what goals mean in analytics and how you can go about setting up goals and why you might want to do that. So the concept of goals in something like Google Analytics is essentially setting some objectives we want to achieve with our website, and then telling analytics that they are our goals, and then allowing us to measure how many of the visitors to our website actually achieve those goals, and then we can see some of the characteristics about those people. So we can see which kind of customers are the people who are really engaging with our site. So there are three different kinds of goals we can generally set up in the most basic sense. One is a destination goal. So that means that someone's actually reached a certain page on our website. So that might be the completion page of an inquiry form, or a thank you for signing up for an email newsletter. Sometimes it'll be we might want to conduct a search on our website, so it could be a search completion, or if you're selling products online, most often your main goal will actually be the completion process of an online sale.
And for services, would it be right to say the completion of a download of maybe a brochure or something like that?
So that's a little bit more of an advanced goal setup, which we call an advanced. But you are correct.
You are the analytics expert, so we'll leave that to you.
So you can set up events, and we can measure files that are being downloaded. Okay. So I know for us, we like to keep track of whether people are downloading certain infographics or PDFs or slideshow presentations. We can also measure whether someone's viewing a video. So if we wanted to go and embed this video on our website, we could actually measure when people are playing it and when people are pausing it, how many people actually complete the whole video. That requires a little bit more setup to do those kinds of things. But to simply measure whether someone's reached the end of a sign-up process is quite easy. Some other really simple goals we can set up that anyone could do quite easily. Number of pages per visit. So we might want a user to come to our website, and we might measure a goal as they've viewed at least 5 pages on our website. We can set that as a goal, and every user that has visited 5 pages in one visit to our website, that'll count as a goal conversion. Another really simple example that we could use is time spent on a page.
Okay.
So I know with our blog content, we have two goals set up. One for someone who stays on the page for more than 2 minutes, and one for another person who stays on the page for more than 5 minutes.
People who are actually reading the blog.
Exactly. So
Okay.
2 and 5 minutes doesn't sound like a whole lot of time, but people do tend to really scan and jump around on websites, and it's surprising how little time people spend on your site.
I'd just like to interrupt you there, and that's where the SEO concept, the content structure that we had last week as well, that tells you how to set up your website pages, because most people will look through the headings of the page or the blog and see whether the content is for them. So
yeah.
I think if they're 2 minutes and 5 minutes, you're able to see whether they're actually interested in that content and they're reading it or engaging with it.
So in terms of our content, we can measure it on multiple levels on how successful it is in engaging our audience. We can see how long they've stayed on the page. We can see whether they've played a video, whether they've downloaded a file, and whether they've shared that content on social media. So there are a lot of different ways we can actually measure how well our content is succeeding, and then feed that back into our ongoing content planning to try and keep engaging our customers.
So with the little setup on analytics, which I believe you'd show everyone over the next one of the next upcoming webinars.
We'll show as much as we can.
As much as you can.
Time we have.
You can't cover everything in that, but some of these basic setups that people would find very useful, and tracking as we spoke about, the macro goals and the micro goals, and in this week, so people actually tracking what's happening on the website. So that would be really interesting. I think.
Definitely. And I think it's really important. We're talking about a lot of different things through these 8 weeks, and you can go out there and try a lot of them. But it's really important that you are trying to actually measure them as well. If we're not measuring it and trying to continually improve, then we have no way of really telling that we're being successful. And we have to keep, we're never going to get it perfect, and things never stay the same for long. So you have to keep revisiting it and constantly updating the way we do things. So analytics is a really useful and important tool to keep doing that going forward.
And that's one of the things that I think we find is beautiful about digital technologies or marketing. You can actually measure and track and see what's happening on your website and how well a campaign has been, or an ad that you've put out through AdWords, or that you've spent. You can actually track a lot of that stuff. Whereas I believe with the offline, it's much harder to actually see how many people viewed a sign of yours, or how many flyers were actually seen by people. So that's a big thing that analytics does, which is it's free.
Certainly, many of the clients we have that work in larger organizations love the fact they can go to their managers and say, look, I can show you how much value we got from this. When they're putting ads in print advertising or more traditional forms of media, it can be really hard for them to prove their return on investment. So if you are in an organization where you're trying to really pitch digital and you're trying to get it going, and you have to demonstrate the value to someone, analytics is your best friend, because it can really show the value you're getting.
But even as a business owner, you know what's happening as well,
Yeah.
and of course, everyone's got a tight budget. You know where your money is better spent, so it's very important.
Definitely. So another question is from the webinar. We'll try to get through as many as we can. From Angela this time. She wanted to know whether there was any resources for finding guidance on some privacy policies and return policies for people's websites and e-commerce stores.
So I'll break that up into 2 parts.
Yeah.
Privacy policy and return policy, 2 separate things. So if you are using something like a WordPress, there are sort of plugins that we call that create privacy policy pages for you. So if you Google legal pages WordPress, it is a paid service, but they will actually create the legal pages for you. The best way to create a privacy policy is not copy from your competitors, but have a look at all different competitors, and then sit down and write it for your own website. It's a single page. It should not be more than that. That covers your major details as to what you actually do with people's information. How compliant your site is. Where you're located, your ABN. So you can include all the information to show that you are a valid and trustworthy business. So rather than looking out there and so some of these tools are good to get you started, but still recommend to customize them based on your business. Returns, on the other hand, if you are working as an e-commerce provider, it could be returns for payments, it could be returns for products. So if you are selling perishable goods, that's gonna, last only for a few days, or of course, you don't want to have a 3-month return policy because that doesn't make sense. But if you are, uh, if you are using services, I don't think returns really comes in the picture unless it's a sort of guarantee of delivery. With payment gateways, if you are on a custom payment gateway, I know a lot of the payment gateway providers, like the bigger banks, would actually ask you to include some terms in terms of returns. Some of them take 20 days to process a return, 21 working days. So till then, make it clear to your customer, because they may say, oh, they may have made a purchase, and then the next day they contact you for a return, but it's gone through to your bank, and you try and get the return, and they have to wait 20, 25 days. And we've seen that in the past. They're like, oh, you blocked so much of my money. But as long as you're clear and upfront about that, you should be covered. So again, look at your business, understand your products, understand your customers, and make it clear as well. Also, with returns, make sure that when people are checking out or purchasing from your site, that there is an option right there where they can actually check what the terms are, or make it very clear that there's no returns for this product, or returns are 24 hours. Now, if you're a really big company, like I know Zappos, they're very famous. They do over $1 to $2 billion of sale every year of shoes, especially in different products. They offer 365 days returns. Now, I know that's not feasible, but those are shoes. So meaning you could buy a pair of shoes, not even look at it for 6 months. I guess that's the way. I'm not sure of the exact term. And if you don't like it, you can just send it back to them. But that's because they're a huge company. So keep the time frames according to your business, and write it in very simple and easy English for people to understand.
Right, and I think that's a good point. We can't all be Zappos and offer 365 days of returns, but just being clear on what we are offering is probably the most important thing. So once you've made that decision, just making sure it's really clear. There's not too much grey area, not too much room for error. The customer knows exactly what to expect, and we cover all our bases.
And also with returns, sorry, one more thing to add. Do think about postage and handling, because a lot of the time that gets miscommunicated. You just say returns over there, and people expect to get everything back, including what they've paid for postage and handling. Now, if you had to do that as a business and you had to send that back, means that postage and handling would actually be coming out of your pocket when you're sending it back again, unless one of the post services give it to you for free, or you have a very good setup that you offer free returns. Make sure that you clearly mention that postage and handling would be deducted if it is sent out to you, if that's the case.
Great. So we have another question from Mark, which is from last week. We shouldn't have time to get to actually. So this touches back on some of the SEO and content topics we talked about last week. So we are jumping back a little bit, but it's probably good to revisit because it all ties in really well.
Very true.
So Mark was thinking about uploading 31-page brochures to his website to display a bit of technical knowledge and provide that information to customers. He wanted to know whether we thought it was a better idea to put it all up there at once and just make it available, or to sort of drip feed it gradually through a blog. We had a bit of a discussion about it, Sohail, and I think we found that it's quite similar to one client we work with who is a very technical client as well. And we think it is really good to have that technical information up on the site. It's a good resource. You've got those pages there that will be indexed for search engines.
Yes.
And customers that are coming to your website looking for technical information will be able to find it.
Yes.
We feel though you really should be using that blog to drill down on that information, pull out smaller pieces and tell more of a story. Blogs maybe not the best place for all your technical information, but a really good place to tell more of a story around those products, to go off on some tangents and to really convey the benefit and the solution to the customer.
Very true, Ryan. So make those technical documents almost supplementary to the outcomes or the results that the clients get by using those products, or if it's mostly products. And make sure that you write a blog post. You may get a customer to say something about it or contribute to that post, and you can link out to the technical documents. So if you had to, do put them all up, but make sure that you're using new content or fresh content on your blog to send people back to that technical information and download it. Ron's just looking at
I'm just reading your questions come in now. I'm not ignoring, so
okay.
try not to too often.
Just looking through the
Let's go and just keep an eye on Twitter on our screen up there. So yeah, I think that's a good point, and you know that you've got that technical information there to refer off to, so it's fine to link back to it from your blog content. But yeah, just really trying to find a different way to communicate it, and I often think of it as filling in the gaps as well.
And that's where, again, to recap even further, that's where the customer journey comes in, understanding your customer. So they could be, you know, it could be the technical manager, or you know, the technical guy from one company that comes into your website to download any technical document. But you could also refer the boss there who's not very technical and wants to engage with you and wants to see what the outcomes are. So you know, make sure that you're catering to that audience and you understand the.
Yeah, really good point. I think the technical information often fits into that evaluation stage.
Yes.
Where you might have, say, an engineer or depending on what your industry is, your real technical person reading that.
Yes.
Often afterwards, doing the implementation and support stages where they're trying to actually implement the product and they need more detail on the specs.
Yes.
Or the fine details. But in that awareness stage where we're trying to bring new customers in, they often don't want to dive straight into the technical info. What they do want is a really brief overview and a story and some bite-sized content, the same way that people will pull readers into a newspaper with the nice short articles with the big picture on the front page, and then you drill down to the further content later. So
and if I just had to add over there as well, if you are putting technical documents up, another concept that you could use, maybe might require your web developer's help, is give the person downloading the document an option to give their details before they download. So you may want to take their first name and their email address and phone number, and then allow them to download it, or allow them to download it for free. You know, so that way you'd even capture the details. So after a week or 2 weeks, you could follow up with that person and send them a blog post you've written about the content or the technical document they've downloaded, which they could share with their owner, or you know, the business owner or the CEO of the company. So if you think about the whole process as to how you can actually get people's details in through those downloads and use that to build your business, that could be quite good, and analytics would tie into that as well.
Right, thanks, Sahil. So question from Tanya, easiest platform to start a blog, and is it possible to feed in other blogs?
In my opinion, if you're just looking at a blog, the easiest platform is WordPress, in my opinion. Of course, there's Tumblr, there's Blogger, there are a few out there which are also very easy to set up. WordPress I like because there are a lot of plugins as well. It's very extendable. When you talk about feeds, so when you talk about WordPress, there are two versions. One is WordPress.com, which is very easy to set up, and then there's another one called WordPress.org. So I'll explain the difference. WordPress.com is you go in, you type your details, and it's all set up. WordPress.org is a bit more powerful. It's like putting in your own custom website, and you can do whatever you want with it because, again, it's open source. So if you're starting a blog only, go for WordPress.com. But if you feel that it's going to become more than a blog, that you may add products over time, or you may start selling things, then start with WordPress.org. About feeding in other blogs or information, you could do that. So I know there are feeders, what we call as feed burners, or RSS feeders, which if you Google, they basically take information from another website or another bunch of websites and show them on your site. But I don't know how much value that would be for your readers at times, because those websites may have a whole lot of different information as well. Again, try and keep content on your website about specific topics or a niche that you know about, instead of feeding in other blogs from other websites that have no relevance. So it is all possible.
And you did mention Tumblr, which is a tool that I actually really like. I think of it as kind of a hybrid between a blog and social media tool.
Yes.
And I'd say only really appropriate where you are going to have a really simple website, probably only in a blog format, and largely for really image-heavy and very visual businesses. So if you're going to be posting a lot of video and images, not so much text, for some really nice minimal design and something that's really shareable, Tumblr could be great for that.
Yes, yes.
It's also a bit of a hub for GIF images too.
No, they're
Kill hours there, but-
yeah. A lot of people spend a lot of time on Tumblr discovering images, discovering things. WordPress, it's more of a custom blog that you'd want to send people out to. But most of these offer free trials, so even WordPress, I believe, .com is free. Tumblr is also free, or at least free to try. Try them initially, see which one you find easier, and then just use the one that's, but don't move between. Go on, stick with one and can use one of them, and that would help, writing your blog, and they're quite easy to use.
I've got a question from Stacey who we talked a bit about usability during the webinar on Wednesday, so and we did briefly mention some tools that you could use to help measure or test our usability. So do you have a couple of tools that people can maybe go check out to assess the usability of their website?
Yeah, so we did mention in the webinar that day that a lot of these tools are a combination of SEO and usability. So if I look at specific topics, so for example, in usability, you want to know where people are clicking on your website. Suppose you have images on the home page, and those can't be clicked to, and by putting something called crazy eggs, which is a funny name.
Is it crazy and eggs as in Easter eggs?
Yeah, crazy as in
crazy eggs.
Crazy eggs. You can actually get a heat map of where people are clicking on your website, so you can see what's more popular. Suppose you have images and you see people are trying to click on those images, but they're not clickable. You know that you need to put a link to that image to more information. So that's usability in a very simple sense as well. For those of you who want to get an external perspective, there is usertesting.com, I believe, and there are a few other user testing services. So they actually get someone in some part of the world to actually go through your website, and those guys are quite experienced with using websites, and you can get the video and see what's actually happening on your website. So again, it's good to get basic ideas, but it's not your customers that are actually trying it. There's nothing like customer feedback, so make sure you have an option to get feedback from your customers, suggest changes. Take live chat. Ask them what they like, what they don't like. That's the best sort of usability, in my opinion.
In terms of some other basic indicators, there are some things we can look at in analytics as well. So there's a graph called a behavior flow, which shows the path that most users take through our website, and we can see if they're dropping off at certain points or going around in circles through pages trying to find the content they're looking for. So we can try and clean up our navigation there and look at which pages aren't getting any traffic, or whether people are having to search for certain content to find it. We can also set up some goal funnels and see if people are getting through forms or whether they're dropping off halfway. So lots of different things we can try and measure, and it's probably an ongoing process that has to keep over time.
So most of these things we're saying it takes time. Be patient about it. Try different things. Work through it, and eventually you'll start seeing the results. But don't expect to make your images clickable and expect 10 more inquiries or 100 more inquiries overnight. Have realistic expectations from these changes, and over time they will start giving you results. It's almost a sum of all these changes brings you the results.
Yep, great. So only got 1 minute left, but one last question we'll get through. So some of your favorite e-commerce sites or e-commerce sites you think people should look at that are really great? So maybe we can reel off a few in the last minute we have here.
You would know some as well. Skinny Ties is one that I find quite nice. Indochino is another one. So that one's pretty nice as well. So there are two of those that I know as well. Tom's is another one. I don't think it's Australian, but these three sites are really good ones that you could see in terms of e-commerce. Of course, in the bigger sense, there's Zappos, and I like a lot of these modern, responsive-looking websites. So have a look, have a Google, and see all the different ones out there.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for another week with us, Sohail. You've been, I know you've been very popular with the fans.
No, thanks very much, Ryan, for all the analytics information and taking us through these weeks of the Decoding Digital.
No one's living off your fame, so thanks everybody. be sure to tune in next week. We're back as always on Wednesday, and we're talking mostly about how to support your customers online, but Fergal's also going to give us a bit of a LinkedIn workshop as well, which will be really valuable for those services and professional services businesses that we've got, which I know there are quite a few of you, so definitely worth tuning in for that. And we'll see you then.
Thanks, very Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Bye.